You're listening to a special presentation from Night of the Living podcast, Zoned Out, with Freddie, Joe, and special guest Matt Hoffman. So we were just talking during the break that Matt also has an EP called The Fifth Dimension, which is all Twilight Zone themed songs. Which is freaking
thanks
cool.
for the plug. Definitely, you can find that on your streaming platforms. It was been recorded back in 2013, but it still exists for the world. Check it out.
I love it. It's hard to be a musician and be your DIY musician. People, they don't get you don't get the exposure you deserve or need because it's like such a cluttered space. So you got to check this out, because if you want stuff that you're actually probably going to relate to lyrically, there it is. We're all Zone fans. I called it The Zone just then. That sounded real goofy.
You weren't like all cool guy about it. You were like, oh yeah, we're all Zone fans.
We're all zoners. When a fandom has a name, Zoner boners.
The Zoner community. Do you identify as a Zoner?
I think I'm a total Zoner. So we're talking about an all-time classic today, A Stop at Willoughby. In my top 10 for sure. Original air date, May 6, 1960. Second of 3 episodes, directed by Robert Parrish. We already covered one for the Angels, and then we'll get into The Mighty Casey, which I think has an actor from last week's episode in it, if I remember right. 108 credits, best known for Casino Royale, not the one you're thinking of. This is the old comedy Casino Royale. He was a 5-person directing team. He was one of them, and it was where David Niven played James Bond. But it's a total comedy. If you haven't seen it, it's really strange because it's right in the beginning of the James Bond era. Yet there's this thing that plays like a parody, so it's a real oddball. And there was another movie called Flint or Our Man Flint or something like that around that time. I think that was similar to this. I think it was James Coburn or something. Anyways, he's better known as an editor, not a director. He edited Body and Soul, which he had won an Academy Award for, but he did not edit this episode. It's one of the Workaday editors who's been on the series the whole time. This was written by Rod Serling. First of 2 episodes with music composed by Nathan Scott. He's going to come back for Young Man's Fancy. Some of his stock music was used in some other episodes as well. Cast of 18, so this has got one of the larger casts of the series. Gart Williams is our main character. He's this put upon 38-year-old ad agency exec. This is James Daly. It's the only time he's going to appear on the Twilight Zone, but he's going to work with Serling again on Planet of the Apes. He's Honorius, who's one of the orangutans in that, the elder, who he was on Star Trek. He played Flint in Requiem for Methuselah, if you're an old school Star Trek fan. Misrel is the grumpy, pushy boss character, like Ed Asner without the lovability. First of 2 appearances by Howard Smith. He's going to come back in Cavender is Coming. 81 screen credits. He specialized in playing judges, police officers, and corporate bigwigs. Frequent guest star on Hazel. If you remember that sitcom Hazel from 1961. I don't think I've ever seen a single episode of Hazel. Janie Williams is Gart's cold wife. Only appearance by Patricia Donahue. 83 credits, mostly in TV. If you grew up watching TV in the 60s and 70s, you know her face probably because she appeared on every series. 1960, Train Conductor. You know, because there's some a little bit of a time travel element in this. You have 2 conductor roles. This one is the first of 3 episodes for Jason Wengreen. He's going to be in The Midnight Sun and The Bard. This guy has 220 screen credits. He's best known for playing Harry Snowden on All in the Family and Archie Bunker's Place. Also appeared on Star Trek and in Airplane. He was the voice of Boba Fett in the original Empire Strikes Back. But since then, also he originally auditioned for Yoda, which I thought was really interesting. And he ended up getting Boba Fett. And his lines, though, this is one of the problems, a lot of fans have with what they did to the original Star Wars trilogy, is they erased a lot of people's work in the effects area, but they also replaced his voice with Tamara Morrison when they re-recorded it so that he would match. Yeah. So that's a bummer. Then we have Helen. So this is her only appearance. And I think she was who was Helen again? Why is that struggle? Why am I struggling with which character Helen was?
Helen. Oh, is that his assistant? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Okay,
I think as a secretary,
the real female.
Well, she comes back to work on Night Gallery, which is essentially like season 6 of the Twilight Zone. We'll get into that when we get to it. 1888 conductor, James Maloney, 55 credits. I don't have much about him. Odds and ends about this episode: Saugatuck to Connecticut, or Saugatuck, Connecticut to New York City is 48 minutes by train. So that's the commute that our character is making twice a day. And other than that, I'd say this is probably the sister episode of Walking Distance. Where, yeah, it kind of goes together. But that's all I had to say as far as background on this one. So if you guys want to jump into the story.
Sure. It's funny. There's a moment I'll reflect on later when we talked about his wife, Jane. I've noticed with a lot of these episodes, what happens is they'll show the guy or whatever in sharp clarity with the camera, which it's amazing how clear, it's on film, the picture is. But then they clip to the women's side, it gets that kind of misty Vaseline on the lens polished look. And at first I was like, why is that? I was like, oh, okay. So, for looks, they might have, taken the focus just slightly out for on the women's side. And you can see it if you look really close. And there's some of the clips when they jump to his wife, Jane, you can see like it's real blurry in the background. And if you look really close, you can see there's a couple of lines and stuff where if you're not looking really close, she looks like she's got no lines, which I imagine back then was a huge thing for the actresses to get more work and all that. Anyway, we'll get to that later. The episode starts out and it's in a tense, smoke-filled boardroom. And there's one especially nervous man on the end of the table opposite of the big wig, we can tell. We find out later that he is Gart Williams. And on the other side of the table is Mr. Mizrel. It's the big boss man. And we find out that another person who's not in the room, Ross, is supposed to be giving a presentation about a major automobile account, which we find out later is worth about $3 million a year in 1960s money, which is, if in 2025 is worth about $33 million. So kind of a big deal. And we find out also through the conversation that Ross, the person not in the room, is a young recruit out of college that was put in charge of this major account by Williams, who was very nervous. And as they're trying to figure out why he's not in the meeting, he's a half hour late. And, I know he's out to lunch, but we got to get him in this. He's half hour late. Someone drops off a message and it appears to be Ross's resignation and notification that he's going to another agency and taking the automobile account with him. And so Williams's boss, Mizrel, starts getting mad and takes this moment to lecture Williams about all his mistakes and how he shouldn't have given it to a green guy out of college. And he just starts railing into him with this, it's a push, push, push business. And keeps repeating that over and over again, just berating him with this stuff.
That uncomfortable close-up of his mouth, they just keep getting closer to his mouth. So, yeah. Oof.
Oh, God. Yeah. And it gets intense.
It's a good name for him, too, Mizrel, because it sounds like miserable.
Exactly. So I took some of the quotes from there, and Mizrel goes, it's a push, 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 all the way, all the time, right down the line. And right at the end, William snaps and goes, fat boy, why don't you shut your mouth?
It's one of my favorite lines in the franchise. I wish I had more Twilight Zone friends because there's so many times just throughout life I wanted to use that and it just would go over. No one would even think. They just think I was being a dick or something. But really, I'd be trying to make this reference. It's so great.
It is awesome. And they clip to Mizrel for just a second. He's taken aback and Williams runs out of the boardroom, shuts the door behind him, and he kind of grabs his stomach, which he repeats often through the episodes. Clearly, he's got some some tension and maybe an ulcer or something like that. And his secretary says, Mr. Williams, as he's heading toward his office, messages are on the desk and there's some hot coffee here. Can I bring you some? And he says, no, thanks. She says, well, you want anything at all? And he goes, yeah, a sharp razor and a chart of the human anatomy showing where all the arteries are.
That's another great one right there.
Wow. That's, whew.
Oy
So
vey.
trigger warning on that one. Yeah.
Almost Norm Macdonald levels of dry.
A little foreshadowing in a way, too. Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Little dark comedy there. So he goes into his office, turns off the lights, and sits down in a chair, and we get the voiceover. This is Gart Williams, age 38, a man protected by a suit of armor, all held together by one bolt. Just a moment ago, someone removed the bolt, and Mr. Williams' protection fell away from him and left him a naked target. He's been cannonaded this afternoon by all the enemies of his life. His insecurity has shelled him. His sensitivity has straddled him with humiliation. His deep-rooted disquiet about his own worth has zeroed in on him, landed on target, and blown him apart. Mr. Gart Williams, ad agency exec, who in just a moment will move into the Twilight Zone in a desperate search for survival.
His pants are riding up. His butt feels like an about to explode bratwurst.
He's got hemorrhoids, and they're really, really digging into him today. So Gart Williams, we find out, is an ad executive, and he just hates his job, as I think a lot of modern people can relate, that they're doing a thing to make a paycheck that they can't stand, and they'd rather be doing something else. So that's kind of the big overview of this one.
That hit very close to home for me. As somebody who I worked in a professional environment for like 25 years. And then I had I didn't jump off a train, but I did the next best thing. And I changed my career. And you got to just, you got to get your Willoughby where you can get it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I love this episode for deeply personal reasons too. It plays differently to me now than it did growing up watching it. I totally get it.
Twilight Zone, it's one of the things that's so great about this series is the episodes do have their ebbs and flows as you go through your life. I mean, I got into this as I'm almost 50 now, and I got into it when I was a kid, grade school probably. And the episodes that wrote me in are not even probably in my top 10 anymore, because of how, and this is one of those that I think is such an age episode where, like, as a kid, it's probably a bottom tier. And then as you get older and older, just keeps getting better and better, gets more and more relevant. It's really just like amazing as you traverse through your life. Just I can rewatch this, every few years. It just has like more meaning, I feel like.
We had a similar conversation about Walking Distance, the same themes. Yeah, Matt. So it felt like that same kind of thing, but this felt deeper.
Big time.
Y'all can't see this, but
he hid the crux of his complaints is like, I'm doing something I don't want because I just want to be plain, which I think Freddie, you and myself have more of like a similar notion, but we all have that, like, just want to be doing something else. He almost doesn't want to be doing anything. It sounds like,
he does.
It's relatable, that his passion is just being bland, but we all have our passions. And then I think this episode hits with like pretty much anybody. I feel like anybody, unless you're really like actualizing what you want to be, which is great, then you don't need to watch this.
I find that hard. But anybody out there is like, I'm good. I don't need to think about any other kind of life.
Y'all can't see this, but Freddie and I were bobbing our heads like bobbleheads as Matt was talking about that whole reflection of how it hits you different over time.
We're all three of us are middle-aged men. And I think, and it's funny because like when you watch the Twilight Zone, they talk about people who are like 10, 15 years younger than us being middle-aged, kind of as the presentation of, which goes to show you that it's true what they say, that 70 is the new 50, right?
People look very old back then, definitely, I feel like. Because when they say he was a 38-year-old, I think he looked older. I feel like he looked older.
Yeah, they identify him as
But
38-year-old.
like we were talking last week, how the children are all such oddities in the Twilight Zone. The wives in the Twilight Zone are all very insufferable, and it's so of course the men I feel are just aging probably not as gracefully in the Twilight Zone with these women they have to live with.
It always made me wonder about like the relationship between Rod Serling and his wife when he would write some of these episodes, but then he wrote the episode about the slot machine. And that guy, it was kind of a flip. It was a role. The spouse was, so I don't, it made me wonder like what the nature of their relationship really was.
There's a lot of this. Am I right, fellas? But it's like,
yeah, there are some hardcore ones in this series. You could make like a rogues gallery of cold wives. You could make a coffee table book from every Twilight Zone series.
It's funny when we talk about how it's relatable too, going all the way back to the beginning, first couple episodes, I wonder how much of this is Serling writing for the audience, knowing, okay, this is what people identify with, because he's shown a lot of progressive thought in a lot of what he's done with the episodes and exposing people to new ideas. But there's a lot of that, like you said, referring back to the kind of the traditional feelings and norms of the day, where he's like, okay, well, I'm going to write the story this way so people relate to it, but then I'm going to sneak in my subtle message beneath that. So
I think there is something to it because he was so groundbreaking that way for that. So like it's weird, especially like if you try and bring a younger person into Twilight Zone nowadays and just try and like to relate it to the time of that time, and and not that I was around in the 50s and early 60s, but I at least was a decade out, so I had a closer awareness, trying to explain like what the world was like and how amazing that he it was putting people of color into his shows and stuff. But then getting to your point, like to kind of placate the networks, we're talking about right now an episode about this ideal place, Willoughby. It's the greatest place. It's your haven. And when you open the windows and look, it's just all white people. And I don't know that Rod would have even probably wanted to cast, I'm sure, a couple of black people running around Willoughby, but he probably, that's this network thing. So I think there is probably some sort of like, hey, I need to pander to the network or the audience or the time that we were living in, and do XYZ. But he was so good and progressive, I think, overall about all that stuff.
Yeah. And they did push back to him a lot over the years, from my understanding. And like he even, I think, addresses some of that stuff in some of the later episodes, but like creates these metaphors and like he always did, but like to hide it from the executives, like that he's talking about them directly,
Yeah.
And he tossed in, like, occasionally it would be like an episode like The Hitchhiker, where you are seeing a strong female protagonist going through an experience, and it's not directly like, hey, you should be paying attention to what this woman's going through, but the message is clear of like, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that you're not seeing that she's got to navigate through. What's the other one? The doppelganger one with the
mirror image.
Mirror image.
Yes. So a lot of that, like, being gaslit and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. It's I love the subtlety of Serling's work.
Yeah, he's complex too. Just when you think you understand him completely, he throws a lot of curveballs.
He jukes on you. So all right, so we start out with all that, and he's just slumped down in his chair, and we get this voiceover, and then we see him riding on a train, assumably home, and he's talking to the conductor a little bit and complaining about, days getting shorter, everything's getting harder, and he kind of drifts off, and when he opens his eyes, he's on a stopped train, and it's summertime outside, which is weird because when he fell asleep, it was snowing outside. And there's no one else on the railway car. And the sun's bright outside, and he hears them calling out for the stop of Willoughby. And he talks to the conductor, who's a totally different guy. And the conductor's like, yeah, it's beautiful. It's Willoughby right outside. And he's like, where's Willoughby? And I love this like circular argument. If it's like, where's Willoughby? And he's like, well, Willoughby's right outside. He's like, right.
John,
first, like,
I need to say this is the point in the episode where if you have decided to take on the drinking game, drink every time someone says Willoughby, you will realize what you have done to yourself. And you will even be very sick before the end of this sequence because this guy, Willoughby, he's up there. Son, Willoughby, where they just like you're saying. And then it keeps going though as the episode progresses. And by the end, you will have a fun night if you play the Willoughby drinking game. I promise you.
I think that's probably why this is one of the more memorable episode titles, because it's impossible to forget by the end of it.
So as he's going in here, they're talking about how it's a peaceful town where a man can slow down to a walk and live his life in full measure. And so he's kind of like, what? I don't understand what's going on here. It was wintertime and he kind of looks out the window and then he starts getting off of the train car, and all of a sudden the train car in where he's at moves and he kind of slams against the other car, and he startles awake and he's back on the train and sees the railroad conductor in modern times, and he asks him, he's like, hey, do you remember, was there ever a Willoughby on this line? He's, no, not this run, no Willoughby here. And so we clip to then him pouring a drink for himself at home, and his wife comes down the stairs and explains that she knows what happened that day in the office or something about it, but she wants to hear it from him. And because one of the other coworkers from the meeting, his wife called Jane, Williams's wife. She's clearly frustrated, and she asks him if he's just, demolished his career. And she says, did you throw away a job? He goes, well, it appears not. Misrule phoned before I left the office. He has found it in that great oversized heart of his to forgive. This somewhat obese, gracious gentleman will allow me to continue in his employ because he's such a human-type fellow with a small, insignificant parenthetical additional reason that if I were to go to a competitive agency, I might possibly take a lot of business with me. And Jane takes all of this in stride and goes, go on. He goes, that's it. That's all of it. Oh, I'm tired, Janie. I'm tired and I'm sick. And Jane's pouring herself a drink now. She says, well, then you're in the right ward. We specialize in people that are sick and tired too, Gart. I'm sick and tired of a husband who lives in a kind of permanent self-pity with a heart-bleeding sensitivity that he unfurls like a flag whenever he decides the competition is a little too rough for him. Ooh. And Williams comes back with, this is like vicious. Yeah. Williams comes back and he's like, he says, some people aren't built for competition, Janie, or a big pretentious house they can't afford, or rich communities they don't feel comfortable in, or country clubs they wear around their neck like a badge of status. And Jane goes, and you would prefer? And he says, I would prefer, though never asked before, a job at all, where I could be myself, where I wouldn't have to climb on stage and go through a masquerade every morning at 9:00 and mouth all the dialogue and play the executive and make believe I'm the bright young man who's on his way up, because I'm not that person, Janie. You've tried to make me that person, but it isn't me. It isn't me at all. I'm not very young, soon to be old, very uncompetitive. 38. Yeah, right, 38. Rather dull, quite uninspired, average type guy with a wife who has an appetite. Oh,
yeah.
And she goes, and just where would you be if it weren't for my appetite? And he
Very
says,
Lady Macbeth moment.
Yeah, I know where I'd like to be. She says, where's that?
Kokomo.
He goes, a place called Willoughby, a little town I've manufactured in a dream. And so he actually goes through and gives this long description of Willoughby, which I won't go into here, but it's all beautiful pastures and sunny days and fishing holes. And
he asks her, have you seen the episode called Walking Distance? It's a lot like that.
I love his hyperfixation on the boss's weight. Like from the fat boy at the beginning, and then it carries into here with the oversized heart. It's just so great. What is his deal with that?
He hates that guy, and it's like it's so low. It just kind
It's
of,
great.
yeah, it's funny.
It was probably the one thing that Sterling felt he could dig into safely, like in the public, and be like, "All
Yeah.
right, here's the things I can insult him with."
He's a corporate fat cat, literally, you know, like, so nobody is going to feel bad because this
Yeah.
character is just totally unlikable. So they're like, we can do whatever we want. We're going to call him Fat Boy.
Well, there's a ton of body shaming in this whole series.
Yeah,
Like
they
the one
did
right
that.
before, the Fats, and a nice place to visit.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Hey, Fats. He did call him Fats.
so we see Williams waxing poetic about this place and how lovely it is, and it's actually kind of a sweet moment. It kind of zooms in on him, and you can just see him staring off into the distance and imagining this place. And Jane at the end of it is like, "Well, I guess you were just born too late. And I've made the miserable, tragic error of marrying a man whose big dream in life is to be Huckleberry Finn." And I thought, yeah, apparently, yeah, it sounds like it. Y'all should get divorced.
Yeah.
And so that's the end of that part. And then it clips to Williams again, dozing off on the train. And the conductor had, before he dozes off, says, "Yeah, Willoughby?" And Williams startles up, and there's a fake out. It's the modern conductor, and he goes, "Yeah, Willoughby's never been on this route." He said, "Never heard of it." "All right, okay." And he falls asleep again, and everything's the same as before. He sees the old conductor, and he's about to get off the train, and he's like seeing it outside again, and the train starts to roll just as he gets to the same spot where he was going to step off before, and it brings him back, and he's kind of disjointed, and he's like, "You know what? Next time, I'm getting off the train." So he promises himself. And now we see him back in his office, and he's on a conference call, or a speakerphone call with his boss, Misrel, and he's getting a push, push, push on the phone, and it keeps repeating the same stuff over and over again. And Williams is hearing it echo in his head, and he's getting that call, and he just finishes that call, and he calls Helen, his secretary. That's where Helen is. And he's trying to figure out one thing. He gets a phone call on one phone, and they're yelling in his ear, and a phone call on the other phone. He's holding them both up and trying to answer questions from the secretary, and the secretary tells him that Mr. Misrel wants to see him and is very insistent, and he's getting frustrated, and you hear that exaggerated from the phones, and he takes both of them and hangs them up and goes in his bathroom, and he's just trying to take a break for a second, and he's imagining that the push, push, push from his boss. You see his boss's face up in the mirror, and it's kind of appearing place to place, and he's hearing all these different things, and it's just overwhelming him, and he smashes the mirror with his hand, and just pauses for a second. He comes back and kind of staggers out of the bathroom, and he's like, "This is it. I'm done." And he picks up the phone, and he calls his wife, and he's like, "Janie, are you at home? Honey, just stay there." He said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm coming home. Will you wait there for me?" And we're only hearing his side of the argument. And he's like, "Honey, but I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Will you wait for me?" And we hear her hang up on him and abandon him. And she's done. And so he hangs up the phone, and again, we see him on the train, and he's just wiped, doesn't even answer the conductor, who's like, "Hey, how you doing today?" And he just kind of falls asleep again. And this time, he wakes up. He's back in Willoughby. He leaves his briefcase on the seat on the train.
Very deliberately, too.
Very clearly, he sees it there, and he leaves it there. And he gets off the train, and he starts talking to the inhabitants. And he's actually off the train now. He's talking to the people. Everybody knows his name. Everybody knows who he is. He talks to two kids who just went fishing. He's like, "Hey, I think I'll join you tomorrow." And they're like, "There's always room. It's great.
Plenty
great
of fish.
Plenty of fish." Yeah. So he's happy there, and you see him smiling and relaxing and connecting with people. And they go to pan over to the swinging pendulum of the station clock, and it slowly fades into a swinging lantern of a railroad engineer who's over in the snow underneath the tracks. And the modern conductor is talking to the engineer and says that, he yelled something about Willoughby just before jumping. And we see that...
Willoughby! It should have been like Harrigan or whatever that guy said when he busts through the glass door. That's the only flaw in this episode is that he didn't bust through a window to go to Willoughby.
We could have seen it. I wonder if they filmed it and we're just like, nah, that's too much. But also keep in mind, like, this is kind of a drastic thing. I think this was, I don't know how much they would have done something like this in the 60s before, but like, you know, they didn't show him jumping to his death. They just showed him peacefully after it. And so they're just kind of like, yeah, he's out. And they load him up on the hearse. And as the hearse door closes, it's Willoughby and Son.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun. And we get the closing voiceover with Willoughby. Maybe it's wishful thinking, nestled in a hidden part of a man's mind. Or maybe it's the last stop in the vast design of things. Or perhaps for a man like Mr. Gart Williams, who climbed on a world that went by too fast, it's a place around the bend where he could jump off. Willoughby, whatever it is, it comes with sunlight and serenity, and it is a part of the Twilight Zone.
Bum, 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 bum. It's so perfect, except for that one little detail of him not crashing through a window to get to Willoughby. And it would have been fun to have him whenever he's in the Willoughby scenes have like a big hunk of his brains hanging out or something from where he jumped off the train. And then the kids would have to kind of like half react to it, but also it has to be kind of like heaven so they can't be too horrified.
Like Head Wound Harry.
Yeah, I was
exactly.
thinking like, so the 80s Twilight Zone, I don't know how much you guys watched it or got into it. It had its moments. Like there were good parts. But one thing I found, it was more like, I don't know if I'm going to use the right words, but just like graphic in a demonic way. It had like a visual darkness to it a lot of times. And they did some remakes. And I think a cool like 80s remake of this would have been to play in a way that, and this might even have been what this was doing, but there's a little left to interpretation, but where Willoughby is people who have either killed themselves or been murdered, and so through the whole episode he's looking out the window thinking it's this Eden, because you don't really see the people, and he finally gets off the train, he like goes up to someone, they turn around, like they might have like a big head wound or like, so, you know, so it's really like all these like actually people are very like tortured because they all died in some, you know, it could be like a horror up this episode. There's definitely a way to do that, I think, that would be workable for an 80s reboot of this.
Oh, you know, it'd be real creepy.
It would completely kill the charm, however. It would like be a whole different vibe, but it could be done.
It's a double twist. It's like, you know, it's a twist on a twist. But it's also...
It would be good for people who have seen the original Willoughby and kind of know what you think you're going to know, and then you get a little kick at the end that you weren't used to.
Yeah, because you got to freshen it up for the hardcore fans who already know the story. Like the two fishing kids could be all like bloated and waterlogged.
Yes, exactly. When he finally like approaches them.
Yeah, it'd be creepy as shit. That sounds like Stephen King's It, kind of, you know, it'd be like something along those lines, only slightly sweet.
The train conductor is like, you see him just talking and then it pans down and he turns sideways and he's got two big marks where the railroad like tracks get run over.
Or he could be like the devil, you know, that old dude could be like the devil or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
it's cool.
We need to do another reboot.
I feel like if I were to want to get an adult into the Twilight Zone, this would be one of them that I would say to pop into, and I'd pair it with like maybe a more like an Eye of the Beholder, like, you know, a real, like a visually kind of classic thing. But this is like an adult watchable episode that I don't know what person over the age of like early 30s and beyond would not relate to. And being in my 50s, I wonder if I feel like it's an arc. I feel like as you get into retirement, it might go back to losing it, because now you're kind of in your Willoughby at this point, you know, you're chilling out. Life doesn't have these stressors anymore. You might have other, I don't know, I'm not there yet, but I feel like really between like early 30s and maybe like late 50s, this is peak relatability for Twilight Zone.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And it really is aged super well too. There's not a lot in it that feels too foreign. Although, you know, it is funny, you're seeing, and I think we talked about this some with the Walking Distance, you're seeing other people's golden age is this guy's end of his rope. You know, so like when he's on the train commuting back to Connecticut and it's snowing and the train's quiet and clean and the conductor's friendly and all these things are happening that now people would be like, oh, that's just ideal. And and then, you know, so his nightmare is somebody else's Willoughby, you know. It's just funny how, you know, it's so cyclical. And we accept worse and worse living conditions each generation, I think, for our psychological well-being, you know.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it, man. We keep doing it.
Always reflecting on a simpler time.
Yeah. Everything's just seems so much simpler. I think technology really is the thing. Although I embrace
There's
it.
no way that this can be someone's Willoughby at some point in time. I just failed to believe that. I don't know. Maybe
a Zoom call. Someone's going to be like extra like nostalgic about being on Zoom in their youth. Oh my God. It'd be awful.
I guess kept thinking like I don't know if socially it was the same thing, but like, dude, you can get divorced and you're not going to have a lot of money, but you probably have some money and you can go, you know, go buy a cabin, go to your Willoughby, go find your Willoughby, man.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Or you just jump off the train, I guess.
Yeah,
always an
you should
option.
probably put some sort of a notice of like, you know, if you are thinking about hurting yourself or jumping out of a train, please don't. There are lots of resources available to, you know.
688, is that right? The 3-digit number that they put out that now I think the Trump administration is trying to eliminate. But I think it still exists. I'm pretty sure it still exists.
I'll look it up quick.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what we're doing next week too.
It's 988 is the suicide crisis lifeline. Please call somebody if you are questioning and thinking about hurting yourself, because it's important. We need you around. The next week is The Chaser. Speaking of the devil.
Yeah, The Chaser. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to say about A Stop at Willoughby? This is kind of not super important, but I love the set change on the train where it goes from the 60s version of the train to then he knows the oil lamps they have hanging. It's just little details like that. I'm always like, oh, that's wild to imagine riding a train at night with oil light as your only light. It had to be a totally different life.
How dangerous all that would have been with like an open flame on a train that's made of wood. I mean, like, it's amazing stuff didn't just burn down all the time before. Yeah.
There's nothing more dramatic than a train on fire rolling down the tracks.
Right.
Yeah. That's some super drama, but,
another peaceful day in Willoughby.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, last stop Willoughby, everybody get off.
Matt, we'd love to have you back sometime. You just say the word.
Oh,
I'm
it's
sure.
so fun. Thank you. Yeah. I'll be sure to watch the right episodes next time.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
I did it this week. I did good this week. So 1-1, right? I got to do at least one more to get my record positive.
Absolutely. So The Chaser, and then you know, we're almost to the end of the first season. I think when we get to the end, we should do some sort of special review episode where we can just talk about our favorite moments. But that's coming. You know,
let's do a thing like you did on NOTOP, and we'll do like our top 5 most favorite and least favorite or something like that. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
do
sounds
something.
good.
We'll do it live.
All right, be sure to check out Matt's EP. You can get that on all the streaming services.
You got it. MATTHOFFMAN. Look for the picture of a bald white person with.
It's a big black. I think it's black.
It's black.
Yeah, it's like black in the background. Yeah.
Right. It's all big black square. It's called The Fifth Dimension. That's what you're looking for.
Very cool.
Don't
Freddie,
mix it up with Metallica's Black Album. It's a different album.
Or two.
They're of equal quality. You're just gonna hear something different.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got to get back to work on some music. Oh Lord. All right, guys. Thank you so much. This was a blast. Matt, loved having you on. And
thanks, guys.
We'll see you guys in a week.
Bye.